Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to BRAINROT, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. A glimmer of hope from the unnamed ship. So let me get this straight, Captain Lin Khan said, leaning back in her command chair with the kind of skeptical expression that suggested she'd heard this particular brand of cosmic nonsense before. A galactic empire that's been around for 50,000 years with technology that makes our stuff look like stone knives and bear skins sends out a desperate plea for help across the entire galaxy, and the only species that bothers to show up is us. Her science officer, Dr. Ha, adjusted her glasses and nodded grimly. That's about the size of it, Captain. The KRYLL hegemony's distress signal has been broadcast on all frequencies for 3 standard months. According to our long-range sensors, at least 52 different spacefaring civilizations received the transmission and were the only ones who changed course to investigate. Khan rubbed her temples, feeling the familiar onset of what her crew had dubbed cosmic irony headache. It was a condition that seemed to plague humanity with disturbing regularity ever since they joined the galactic community 30 years ago. Of course we are, she asserted, because apparently, when faced with a choice between basic decency and minding their own business, every other species in the galaxy collectively decided to become Switzerland. The bridge of the UES determination hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Though well-oiled was perhaps generous considering the ship was held together by equal parts stubbornness, creative engineering, and what the chief engineer euphemistically called adaptive maintenance protocols. In layman's terms, they fixed things with whatever they could find and hoped for the best. Lieutenant Nam Khan, the ship's tactical officer, looked up from her console with a frown. Sir, I'm picking up massive energy signatures from the KRYLL home system. Whatever's happening down there, it's not pretty. Nam Khan, define not pretty in terms I can understand. Are we talking needs a band-aid, not pretty, or planet-sized funeral pretty? Khan asked. More like reality is having a very bad day, not pretty, Nam Khan replied. I'm reading gravitational anomalies, temporal flux, and what appears to be space-time having an existential crisis. Fantastic, Khan stood up and walked to the main view screen where the KRYLL system was displayed in all its chaotic glory. 3 suns danced around each other in an intricate ballet of destruction, while the planets orbited in patterns that would have made Newton weep. Engineering. How long until we reach the system? The voice of Chief Engineer Hui Hong crackled through the comm system, carrying its usual hint of barely contained panic. About 6 hours, Captain, assuming the universe doesn't decide to rearrange itself again. I've got the engines running at 95% efficiency, which is honestly miraculously considering half our parts are held together by hope and spite. That's the human way, Khan said with genuine pride. All right, people, let's go save a dying empire, because apparently that's what we do now. The thing about ancient galactic empires, Khan reflected as they entered the KRYLL system, was that they had a tendency to be both magnificent and absolutely terrifying in equal measure. The KRYLL hegemony had once controlled over 3,000 star systems, commanded fleets that could crack planets like eggs, and possessed technology that bordered on the mystical. Keyword had. Sweet mother of all that's holy, Dr. Ha whispered, staring at the readings flooding her console. Captain, I'm detecting massive temporal distortions throughout the system. It's like time itself is unraveling. The main view screen showed a sight that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so obviously apocalyptic. The 3 suns were locked in a death spiral, their gravitational interaction creating ripples in space-time that manifested as shimmering aurora-like effects. The planets hung in impossible orbits, some moving backward through time, others frozen in temporal loops, and in the center of it all, like a jewel set in a crown of chaos, hung the KRYLL homeworld. Incoming transmission. Communications Officer Min Thursday announced. It's definitely alien, but our translators are having trouble with it. Put it through, Khan ordered. The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at what could only be described as a cross between a praying mantis and a depressed philosophy professor. The being's compound eyes reflected the chaos of its dying world, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of millennia. I am Supreme Cognator Xylo of the KRYLL hegemony, the alien said, its translated words carrying an undercurrent of exhaustion. For 3 of your months, we have broadcast our plea across the galaxy. Wars have been fought over lesser things. Empires have fallen for smaller causes. Yet of all the advanced civilizations that received our message, only you humans have answered. Khan cleared her throat. Well, Supreme Cognitor, I'm Captain Lin Khan of the United Earthship Determination. We got your message, and frankly, we're a little confused about why we're the only ones here. Xylo's head tilted in what might have been confusion or possibly existential despair. You are confused? We are the KRYLL hegemony. We have existed since before your species discovered fire. Our knowledge spans the breadth of the cosmos. Our power once reshaped stars themselves. And yet when we face extinction, only a species that has barely learned to leave its home system comes to our aid. Yeah, about that, Khan said, settling into her diplomat voice, which was really just her regular voice with slightly better posture. What exactly is the problem here? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your entire solar system is having a disagreement with the fundamental laws of physics. The Supreme Cognator's compound eyes seemed to dim. An experiment, a glorious, terrible experiment. We sought to harness the power of temporal manipulation on a stellar scale. We believed we could create a perfect moment, a single instant of pure existence that would last forever. Dr. Nha leaned forward. You try to freeze time? We try to perfect it, Xylo corrected, to eliminate the chaos of temporal flow, the uncertainty of cause and effect. We would create a golden age that would never end. And instead, you broke the universe, Khan said flatly. We miscalculated. There was a moment of silence on the bridge, broken only by the gentle hum of machinery and the distant sound of Hui Hong cursing at something in engineering. Right, Khan said finally. So you got a temporal cascade failure, reality is coming apart at the seams, and you need our help to fix it. The question is, why didn't any of the other 46 civilizations that got your message bother to show up? Xylo's expressions, insofar as a giant mantis could have expressions, became even more morose. Because they are wise, Captain Khan. They understand that attempting to aid us would likely result in their own destruction. The temporal instabilities are spreading. Soon they will consume not just our system, but neighboring regions of space. Eventually, perhaps the entire galaxy. So, they're just going to let it happen. They're being pragmatic. Khan looked around her bridge, highlighting the expressions on her crew's faces. Anha looked fascinated and horrified in equal measure. Namkhan appeared to be calculating firing solutions for problems that couldn't be solved with weapons. Min Thursday was frantically trying to establish communications with other ships that weren't there. Hui Huang's voice could be heard over the intercom, explaining to the universe in colorful terms exactly what he thought of temporal mechanics. You know what, Supreme Cognitor, Khan said, settling back in her chair. I think I'm starting to understand why the other guys didn't show up. This is exactly the kind of insane, impossible, utterly hopeless situation that every rational species would take a look at and decide to go have a nice cup of tea instead. Xylo's antennae drooped. Then you too will abandon us. Oh, hell no, Khan said with a grin that was equal parts confidence and insanity. We're humans. Impossible situations are kind of our thing. An hour later, Khan found herself in the ship's conference room, staring at a holographic display that showed the KRYLL system in all its impossible glory. The temporal distortions were getting worse, reality bending and twisting like a pretzel designed by a madman with a degree in theoretical physics. Okay, she said, addressing her senior staff. Let's hear it. How exactly does one go about UNF asterisk king, the fundamental nature of time? Dr. Nha pulled up a series of calculations that looked like they'd been written by someone having a mathematical nervous breakdown. According to KRYL data, the temporal cascade began when they attempted to create what they call a chronological anchor, essentially a fixed point in time around which they could stabilize the flow of causality. That doesn't sound too insane, Nam Khan said cautiously. It wouldn't be if they hadn't tried to anchor it to the gravitational interaction of three massive stars, while simultaneously attempting to expand the effect across their entire solar system. Hui Hong, who had joined them via hologram from engineering, shook his head. Let me guess, they tried to turn their entire star system into a temporal fortress, and instead they created a cosmic-scale time bomb. That's surprisingly accurate, Nha admitted. Khan rubbed her forehead. So what are our options? And please don't tell me the answer involves building a time machine out of spare parts and good intentions. Actually, Nha said slowly, that's not far from the truth. The KRYL's temporal manipulator is still functional, but it's locked into a feedback loop. Every time it tries to stabilize the timeline, it creates more instability. It's like trying to calm a fire by throwing gasoline on it. So we need to break the loop? Min Thursday said. We need to break the loop, and Ha confirmed. But here's the problem. The only way to do that is to introduce a controlled temporal paradox. Something that will disrupt the cascade without making everything worse. Define controlled temporal paradox, Khan said, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew the answer. Someone has to go back in time and prevent the KRYL from starting the experiment in the first place. The conference room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the distant sound of something exploding in engineering, followed by Hui Huang's voice cheerfully announcing that everything was under control. Right, Khan said eventually. Time travel, of course, because fixing a broken timeline with more time travel makes perfect sense. It's actually theoretically sound, and Ha insisted. If we can create a stable temporal loop that prevents the original experiment while preserving the causal chain that led to our arrival, we can collapse the cascade without creating a paradox. Nam Khan frowned. How do we prevent ourselves from creating a paradox while deliberately creating a paradox? Very carefully, Nha said. Khan looked around the table at her crew, noting the mixture of determination and barely contained terror on their faces. You know what the really crazy part is? This isn't even the most insane thing we've tried this year. What was the most insane thing? Min Thursday asked. Remember when we tried to negotiate peace between those two hive mind species by teaching them to play poker? Oh, right, Hui Hong said. That was a Tuesday, wasn't it? Thursday, actually. Tuesdays are when we usually deal with reality-threatening cosmic phenomena. Khan stood up. All right, people, let's do this. And work with the KRYL to calculate the exact temporal coordinates we need. Nam Khan, I want you to figure out how to get us close enough to their homeworld without being turned into quantum soup. Hui Hong, do whatever it is you do to make impossible things work. What are you going to do, Captain? Min Thursday asked. Khan grinned. I'm going to go explain to a 50,000-year-old galactic empire why their best hope for survival is a bunch of humans who've been in space for less than 3 decades. The conversation with Supreme Cognator Xylo went about as well as could be expected, which is to say it started with confusion, progressed through disbelief, and ended with what Khan was pretty sure was the KRYL equivalent of hysterical laughter. You wish to do what? Xylo asked, its compound eyes reflecting the chaotic light of its dying world. Travel back in time and convince your people not to start the experiment that caused all this, Khan explained patiently. It's really quite simple when you think about it. Simple. Xylo's voice rose several octaves. Captain Khan, do you understand the complexities involved in temporal manipulation? The paradoxes? The potential for creating causal loops that could unravel the very fabric of, well, existence. When you put it like that, it sounds complicated, Khan admitted. But here's the thing. Your current plan of letting time collapse seems to be working out quite poorly. Our plan might be crazy, but at least it's proactively crazy. Xylo was quiet for a long moment, and Khan could almost hear the gears turning in the ancient alien's mind. "Captain, may I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did your species answer our call? Why risk your lives for beings you have never met, in a conflict that does not concern you?" Khan considered the question. It was a fair one, really. Why had humanity answered? Why were they always the ones rushing headfirst into situations that any sane species would avoid? She said, finally, "I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I think it comes down to this. We're kind of new to this whole galactic community thing. We've only been out here for 30 years, and in that time we've discovered that the universe is full of ancient, wise, incredibly advanced civilizations. Yes, and apparently every single one of them is too smart to help anyone." Xylo twitched an antenna. "Elaborate." "Look, I get it. You've all been around for thousands of years. You've seen empires rise and fall, species come and go. You've learned to calculate the odds, weigh the risks, make the smart play. But sometimes the smart play is the wrong play." Khan gestured towards the view screen where the KRYLL homeworld hung in its cocoon of temporal chaos. "Your people are dying. Your entire civilization is about to be erased from existence. And instead of helping, 46 different species looked at the situation, did the math, and decided it wasn't worth the risk. They're being logical. They're being cowards," Khan said bluntly. "And you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe this is hopeless. Maybe we're all going to die horribly when we try to fix your time machine with spit and determination. But at least we'll die trying." Xylo was quiet for a long time. When it finally spoke, its voice was softer than before. "Your species is very young, Captain Khan. You have not yet learned to fear the universe." "Oh, we're terrified," Khan said cheerfully. "We are absolutely mind-numbingly scared of pretty much everything out here. The difference is, we're too stubborn to let that stop us. And this is why you answered our call. This is why we answered everyone's call. Because someone has to. Because if we don't, who will?" There was another long pause, and then Xylo made a sound that Khan's translator rendered as a sigh. "Very well, Captain. Tell me about this plan of yours." 3 hours later, Khan found herself strapped into a modified shuttle that looked like it had been designed by someone who had only heard rumors about aerodynamics. The KRYLL had provided what they optimistically called a temporal navigation matrix, which was essentially a very expensive way of saying, "We're going to throw you back in time and hope you land in the right century." "Remind me again why I'm the one doing this," Khan asked through the comm system. Dr. Anha's voice cracked back from the determination. "Because you're the only one crazy enough to think this will work, and, paradoxically, that makes you the most likely to succeed. That's either very reassuring or completely terrifying. Why not both?" The shuttle's temporal drive hummed to life, and Khan felt that peculiar sensation that all time travelers described as like being turned inside out while having an existential crisis. The stars outside began to shift and blur, and then everything suddenly went white. When her vision cleared, Khan found herself in orbit around a very different KRYLL homeworld. Gone were the temporal distortions and reality-bending chaos. Instead, she was looking at a planet that practically gleamed with technological achievements. Cities that reached into the clouds, orbital installations that dwarfed Earth space stations, and a sense of order and purpose that spoke of a civilization at the height of its power. "Well," Khan said to herself, "this is either the right time, or I'm about to have a very awkward conversation with some very confused aliens." Her comm system crackled to life, and a voice speaking perfect, unaccented English filled the shuttle. "Unknown vessel, you are in restricted hegemony space. Identify yourself immediately or face the consequences." Khan blinked. "You speak English? We are the KRYLL hegemony. We speak all languages. Now identify yourself." There was a pause. "Right, this is Captain Lin Khan of the United Earthship Determination. I'm here to speak with Supreme Cognate Xylo about a matter of galactic importance." There was another pause. "Captain Khan from Earth? But that is impossible. According to our data, your species will not achieve interstellar travel for another 18 years. "Yeah, about that," Khan said, settling in her best. "I'm from the future and here to save you from your cell's voice. We need to talk." An hour later, Khan found herself in what could only be described as the most intimidating conference room in the galaxy. The walls were covered in displays showing the extent of the KRYLL hegemony. Thousands of star systems, billions of worlds, trillions of subjects. At the center of it all sat Supreme Cognata Xylo, looking exactly as it would 18 years in the future, except without the crushing weight of its impending doom. "You claim to be from the future," Xylo said, its voice carrying the kind of authority that comes from ruling half the galaxy. "This is a remarkable claim." "It's a remarkable situation," Khan replied. "In about 6 hours, your people are going to begin an experiment in temporal manipulation. The goal is to create a stable chronological anchor that will allow you to perfect the flow of time." "How could you possibly know about Project Eternal Moment?" Xylo demanded. "That information is classified at the highest levels. Because in my timeline, it already happened and it went very, very badly." Khan activated her tablet, showing the recordings they'd made of the temporal chaos. Xylo's compound eyes flashed as it watched its homeworld being taken by waves of reality-warping chaos. This is impossible," Xylo whispered. "I'm afraid it's very possible. The temporal anchor you're planning to create will interact with the gravitational field of your 3 suns in a way your sciences haven't predicted. Instead of stabilizing time, it will create a cascade failure that will eventually consume not just your system, but likely the entire galaxy." Xylo stood up, its tall form towering over Khan. "And you'll come back in time to prevent this?" "That's the plan, though I have to say the irony of using time travel to prevent a time travel disaster is not lost on me." "There's a flaw in your logic, Captain Khan," Xylo said. "If we do not conduct the experiment, then the cascade never occurs. If the cascade never occurs, then you never travel back in time to prevent it. It is a perfect paradox." Khan grinned. "Yeah, I thought of that, which is why I'm not here to stop you. I beg your pardon? I'm here to help you do it right." The next few hours were a blur of technical discussions, frantic calculations, and what Khan was pretty sure was the KRYLL equivalent of a very heated academic debate. Chief Temporal Engineer Vexandra, a tall, crystalline being whose multiple arms allowed it to manipulate several holographic displays simultaneously, had joined the discussion, despite clearly thinking that Khan was either a lunatic or the most sophisticated practical joker in galactic history. The solution, when it finally came, was both elegant and completely insane. "So let me make sure I understand this," Khan said, looking at the holographic display that showed the modified setup. "Instead of creating one massive temporal anchor, we create thousands of smaller ones, distributed throughout the system in a carefully calculated pattern." "Precisely," Vexandra said, its crystalline form chiming softly as it gestured to the display. "The distributed experimental anchor points will create a stable temporal matrix that can handle the gravitational stresses without cascading. And the paradox problem is solved by the fact that we are not preventing the experiment, merely changing its parameters," Xylo explained. "The causal loop remains intact, but the outcome is altered." Khan nodded, though she suspected she was missing about 12 different layers of temporal mechanics theory. "And you're sure this will work?" "Nothing is certain when dealing with time manipulation," Vexandra admitted. "But the mathematics are sound." "That's good enough for me," Khan said, standing up. "When do we start?" "We?" Xylo asked. "You don't think I came all this way just to give you a pep talk, do you? Besides, my ship has some unique characteristics that might be useful for this kind of work." "What characteristics?" Khan grinned. "We're really, really good at making things work that have no business working." The next few hours were controlled chaos. The determination had somehow managed to follow Khan back through time, which Hui Hong cheerfully explained was completely impossible but completely doable if you don't think about it too hard. The ship's jury-rig systems proved surprisingly compatible with KRYLL technology, mostly because, as Dr. Nha put it, both civilizations have a talent for making miracles happen through sheer bloody-mindedness. The modified experiment began at what the KRYLL calculated to be the optimal temporal coordinates. Instead of one massive temporal anchor, they deployed a network of smaller devices throughout the system, each one carefully tuned to work in harmony with the others. Khan watched from the bridge of the determination as the network came online. The space around the three suns began to shimmer with energy, but instead of the chaotic distortions she'd seen in the future, this was something altogether more controlled. Temporal matrix is stable, Dr. Nha reported. The anchor points are holding. Gravitational interactions are within acceptable parameters, added Nam Khan. And I haven't exploded yet. Hui Hong called out cheerfully, which is always a good sign. On the main view screen, Supreme Cognate Xylo appeared. Captain Khan, the experiment is proceeding flawlessly. Time flow has been stabilized throughout the system without any cascade effects. Glad to hear it, Khan said, though I have to ask, what are you going to do with a perfect temporal anchor? I mean, you've essentially created a pocket of space where time moves exactly the way you want it to. Xylo's compound eyes seemed to brighten. We will use it to preserve knowledge, Captain, to create a repository of wisdom that will endure for all time. A gift to the galaxy that will never fade or be forgotten. Khan felt a smile spreading across her face. You know what? That's actually a pretty good use for a temporal miracle. Indeed. And Captain, yes, thank you for answering our call, for believing that we could find a better way. Khan looked around her bridge at her crew, who had followed her through time to save a civilization they'd never met, and felt that familiar warmth that came from knowing they'd done something right. Don't mention it, she said. It's what we do. The journey back to their own time was considerably less dramatic than the trip backward, mostly because they now had a proper temporal navigation system instead of what Hui Hong had accurately described as a quantum prayer wheel. When the stars finally stopped spinning and the universe settled back into its proper configuration, Khan found herself looking at a very different KRYLL system. The temporal cascade was gone, replaced by a stable region of space-time that hummed with quiet energy. The three suns still danced their eternal dance, but now their gravitational interaction was perfectly controlled, creating a zone of temporal stability that extended throughout the system. Incoming transmission. Ming Tu An now. The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at Supreme Cognate Xylo, but not the desperate, exhausted being they'd first encountered. This Xylo stood in what was clearly a vast library, surrounded by holographic displays showing the accumulated knowledge of 50,000 years of galactic civilization. Captain Khan, Xylo said. Its voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there before. Welcome back to the present. It's good to be back, Khan said, though I have to say, your timeline looked a lot better than it did a few hours ago. Thanks to your intervention, we have been able to create something truly remarkable, the Eternal Archive, a repository of knowledge that exists beyond the normal flow of time. Every scientific discovery, every work of art, every moment of wisdom achieved by any species in the galaxy can be preserved here forever. Dr. Nha leaned forward. That's incredible. You've essentially created a backup copy of galactic civilization. More than that, Xylo said. We have created a resource that any species can access. A library that transcends the boundaries of space and time. Khan felt a strange sense of pride, and all it took was a little human stubbornness and a willingness to break the universe in exactly the right way. Indeed, though I confess I am curious about something. Captain, what's that? In your original timeline, 47 civilizations received our distress call, but only humanity responded. Do you know why? Khan considered the question. I think it's because we're new to all this. We haven't learned to be wise yet. Wisdom is not always the answer, Xylo said. Sometimes the galaxy needs a little foolishness, a little hope, a little willingness to try the impossible. Well, if that's what you need, Khan said with a grin, you've definitely called the right species. 3 days later, the determination was preparing to leave the KRYLL system when Khan received an unexpected message. Her comms system cracked to life, and she found herself listening to a transmission that was being broadcast across the entire galaxy to all species and civilizations. To all species and civilizations, the voice said. This is Supreme Cognate Xylo of the KRYLL hegemony. 3 days ago, our civilization faced extinction. In our desperation, We sent out a call for help to every spacefaring species within range. Of all who received our message, only one answered. Khan felt her crew gathering around her as the message continued. The humans of Earth came to our aid, not because they calculated the odds and found them favorable. They came because they believed it was the right thing to do. They risked their lives, their ship, and their future to save a civilization they had never met. The message paused, and when it resumed, Xylo's voice carried a weight that seemed to echo across the cosmos. We have learned something important from our human friends. Wisdom is not always about knowing when to act. Sometimes it is about having the courage to act when action seems impossible. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders, but it is also full of beings who have forgotten how to hope. Khan found herself smiling as the message reached its conclusion. To the humans of Earth, you have our eternal gratitude. To the rest of the galaxy, you have our eternal example. The Eternal Archive is now open to all species, a gift from the KRYLL hegemony to the galaxy. But more importantly, it is a reminder that sometimes the youngest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. The transmission ended, and Khan's bridge fell silent for a moment. Well, Dr. Aha said finally, that was unexpectedly profound. Yeah, Khan agreed. I still think we're just too stubborn to know when to quit. Maybe that's the same thing, Namkhan suggested. Khan looked out at the stars, at the infinite expanse of space that humanity was still learning to call home. Somewhere out there, 46 different civilizations were probably having very interesting conversations about the message they just received. And somewhere else, other species were facing problems that seemed impossible to solve. Set course for Earth, Khan said, but keep the long-range sensors active. Something tells me we're going to be getting more calls for help. Looking forward to it, Captain. Hui Hong said cheerfully. After all, what's the point of having a ship held together by determination and good intentions if you don't use it to attempt the impossible on a regular basis? Khan laughed. You know what, Hui Hong, I think you just summed up the entire human approach to space exploration. Was I wrong? Not even a little bit. As the determination continued its journey through the stars, Khan reflected on how much had changed since they'd first received that desperate transmission from the KRYLL hegemony. Humanity had gone from the newcomers in the galactic community to being the species that everyone called when things got truly impossible. It wasn't the role they had expected to play, but Khan had to admit it suited them perfectly. After all, if you were going to be known for something, the species that never gives up wasn't a bad reputation to have. The stars stretched out before them, full of wonders and terrors, and civilizations that had given up on hope. But as long as there were humans in the galaxy, Khan knew there would always be someone willing to answer the call, even if they were the only ones crazy enough to try. Epilogue. 6 months later, Captain Lin Khan found herself in the uncomfortable position of having to explain to Earth Command why the Determination had alone received 43 separate requests for assistance in the past month. It's really quite simple, she said to Admiral Tra, via subspace communication. Word got out that we're the species that actually shows up when people ask for help. Apparently, that's rarer than we thought. Admiral Traumai rubbed her temples in a gesture that Khan recognized as the international sign for, I should have stayed in bed this morning. Captain, do you realize that 3 of these requests involve potential violations of the laws of physics? Only 3, Khan asked, sincerely surprised. That's actually not bad for us. Khan continued, Look, Admiral, I know it seems crazy, but here's the thing. We're good at this. Really good. And the galaxy needs someone who's willing to try the impossible. Admiral Tra, Ma was quiet for a long moment. You know what the really crazy part is, Captain? What's that? You're right. The KRYLL archive has become the most valuable resource in the galaxy. Scientific breakthroughs that would have taken centuries are happening in months. Art and literature from across the cosmos are being shared freely. And it's all because one ship full of humans was too stubborn to ignore a call for help. Khan grinned. So we're getting an accommodation, you're getting a promotion, and a new ship, and a mandate to keep doing exactly what you've been doing, which is being impossibly, irrationally, magnificent humans. Khan looked around the bridge of the determination at her crew, who had followed her through time and space and impossible situations, and felt that familiar warmth of belonging. "Admiral," she said, "I can't think of anything I'd rather be." The transmission ended, and Khan turned to her crew. "Well, people, looks like we're officially the galaxy's designated miracle workers. Does this mean we get a raise?" "Hui Huang Asket Hopao." It means we get more impossible missions. Even better. As the determination continued its journey through the stars, Khan reflected on how much had changed since they'd first received that desperate transmission from the KRYLL hegemony. Humanity had gone from newcomers in the galactic community to being the species that everyone called when things got truly impossible. It wasn't the role they had expected to play, but Khan had to admit it suited them perfectly. After all, if you were going to be known for something, the species that never gives up wasn't a bad reputation to have. The stars stretched out before them, full of wonders and terrors, and civilizations that had given up on hope. But as long as there were humans in the galaxy, Khan knew there would always be someone willing to answer the call, even if they were the only ones crazy enough to try.